Good morning, good morning, good morning, and a warm welcome to you from wherever you hail from around the world. My name is Steve Falconbridge, and I'm joined by VM on camera, and we are out in Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, Greater Kruger National Park. The temperature this morning is 21 degrees Celsius and about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a wonderful morning. The air is crisp, it is clear, but folks, it is going to be a very, very hot day. So folks, I have come up with an idea, and I would like to every morning start off with the tree of the day, and I've got a beautiful book on the dashboard that I'm going to show you soon. I've already gone through the first probably 6 or 7 trees which do not occur here, so I'm going to go through that book deliberately and show you what we have and go through some interesting facts. Now behind me, folks, I have got a tree that I have spoken about before. This is the African weeping wattle. I've called it once before the toilet paper, or the poor man's toilet paper, but it is a very, very interesting tree in that if you spend too much time under here, you're probably going to get spat on a little bit, because it's got quite an interesting relationship with a little bug called a spittle bug, which actually lives in the tree, and the spittle bug does this with its back legs and actually drops liquid on the floor. So some people think it's raining, but it's actually some form of secretion from a little insect. Okay, but what is interesting about this tree, apart from it being used as a toilet paper, if you take the bark and you boil it down, you can actually use it, drink it to help with some abdominal pain, and an infusion of the bark and the leaves can be used to treat sore eyes or even back pain. Now, a lot of these medicinal values that we find out in the bush have been tried and tested by Sangomas, traditional healers in Africa, witch doctors for a very, very long time, and it's very important that if you do ever attempt these medicinal values, these treatments, you be very, very careful, because does anybody know what the difference is between a poisonous and a medicinal plant? The answer is the dosage. All of you have been out there, you've been to the doctor's given you a prescription drug, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, after you eat. Now that is fine, that is good for whatever you're treating, but if you take 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, there's a good chance you could probably poison yourself. So it's very important to pay attention to how these things are treated, how these things work. And obviously we're not traditional healers, we don't have the qualifications, so stir on the side of caution when talking about these things. But a wonderful tree, the medicinal value in the bush is phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, last night James had the wild dogs, which he left somewhere in this area here. We've come around Vuyatela Dam. There's been no sign on the road of them, but we are driving sort of towards, we've passed Gallagher Pan, we're sort of heading towards the western side of the boundary now. There's no tracks on the road, and likewise some of the viewers posted that there was some cat activity at Vuyatela Dam. Similarly, there's been no tracks coming out, but Tristan and I are both working in the area, and ladies and gentlemen, we have a third feed this morning. Mr. James Henry will be joining us on a walk, as well as our 2 comrades up in the Masai Mara. So please join us this morning. Feel free to comment and send your questions through to hashtag Safari Live and follow the YouTube feed, and send through your comments. Let's get started. It's a wonderful morning. Let's get moving before it gets too hot. Oh, sorry about that grunt, folks. I was doing some interesting leg exercises with James Henry yesterday. He calls it Crazy Sunday 50, and indeed it was crazy, and it was Sunday, and there was 50, lots and lots of leg and body exercises. So my body's a bit sore, but other than that, my ankle's feeling 100%. Everything about me is feeling quite good. Actually, I've apologized for continuing already, but this is the book that I'm using. It's called Sappy Tree Spotters in the Lowveld. It is a very, very good book for the beginner tree adventurer. It is a very, very good book, and it gives you so much information about the trees. There's a nice sort of diagram here which tells you where you should find it in the landscape, and this tree, the African weeping wattle, you should find absolutely anywhere except right up on the rocky slopes. It also gives you a distribution. It gives you the structure of the leaves, which is quite interesting, as well as some pictures, some GIFF, which basically means what to look for in the different times of the year. And if you look just to the right over here, that is what the plant looks like. If you ever take a sample of a tree out here, the best option is to take with a leaf, the flower and the fruit. It's not always possible because obviously plants will flower and then fruit. So to get this whole element together is quite difficult. But what I love about this is that you get the bark, okay? And there's a page in here. There we go. You can go directly to a page in this book and you can look at the bark of a tree and you can quite easily find and identify it. The names are underneath. There's very different characteristics there behind them, folks. But while we carry on searching along this road in a westy direction, I have my friend Tristan who's out there and would like to say good morning. I believe we have no signal with Tristan, folks. Terribly sorry about that. We will continue anyway, and I'll continue to wow you with amazing facts. It is a glorious morning. VM and I both had a relatively decent sleep. I think I had a better sleep than he did. It was quite hot last night, and the mosquitoes are quite worrisome. So we need to sleep, well, I sleep with a fan kind of directly over my body, which kind of keeps the little guys from landing, and all under mosquito nets. Very important for this time of year. But folks, we are going to continue here, still looking for tracks in the road, signs of movement at night. Mr. James Henry has got his walking shoes on and he's out in the bush. Enjoy.
Yes, my first walk in my new shoes. Very exciting indeed. Good morning to you all. I hope you are all filled with a sense of joy and well-being, as am I. My name is James Henry, and on camera today we have got Sebastian Rombi, his first walk back after his episode with the parasites of malaria, hopefully now vacated his liver. Now, very good to have you with us, as I said. Remember, as the other one has told you, please do talk to us using the hashtags #ForLive on Twitter or the YouTube chat stream. I'm told that it is 21 degrees Celsius or so, which I've now forgotten. I think it's 72 degrees Fahrenheit or so. Good. I think that's roundabout right. Just 70, but plus minus. Now, what we're going to do is head towards Chelapan, where Hosana was seen yesterday morning, where those elephants were yesterday afternoon, and just see what we can pick up there. What we have picked up so far is the drag mark of a hyena. Now, what that means, for those of you who don't know, is that a hyena has picked something up and has been pulling it along the road here. And we're just trying to backtrack it at the moment. We're not going to follow the actual drag mark, because that hyena could have gone miles with it. But it looks like it could have stolen it from something. So maybe, if we backtrack it, we will find whatever was knocking about the dam here last night. Apparently there was a cat knocking around the dam. I'm not sure why the dam cam failed to identify what kind of a cat it was, or maybe it was just sounds. So some cat was hunting around here yesterday, and maybe the hyena stole whatever it got, and now that thing is being devoured by the hyena. But maybe there's a cat around here that we will find on our walk. So that's our plan today. And we'll also be looking for small things, interesting little pieces of fauna and flora that perhaps we'd miss if we were in the vehicle. Rexon is on security detail up ahead, keeping things safe for us. So while we see if we can find the tracks of whatever cat this was that lost its meal to the hyena, let's head across to Tristan Dix and find out what's happening in his life.
Well, good morning everybody, and not much is happening at this stage. It's all a case of everything is just a little on the quiet side. We are looking around and hopefully going to find something of interest. As James mentioned, my name is Tristan. On camera today I have got Dave. There we go. And well, as I'm sure James and Steve have told you, you can ask lots and lots of questions. Hopefully you will ask lots and lots of questions on hashtags #ForLive and YouTube chat. James, also don't bother backtracking that drag mark, because that drag mark comes all the way to where the elephant gave birth, and it's the afterbirth from the elephant. So we just tracked all those tracks of the hyenas coming from this area, and it was exactly where the afterbirth was that they came out with it. So that is what they were busy carrying around, which is not surprising. I would have thought that they would have come in last night and finished up all of that. So I've come down to that kind of section, not because of the Ellies, but more because I was thinking maybe Hosana was still around this area and I can at least pick up a track for him and find out where he went. So that's why we're down here towards the Mulawati. So we're going to take the Mulawati southwards, check Twin Dams, and then on towards Treehouse Dam and see if anything's happening in that area. So that's the plan for the morning. Hopefully we will be successful in our endeavors. Dave, you think we'll be successful? Oh yes, exactly. We will be successful, and we shall hopefully find what we are looking for. Because yesterday, while we had the most amazing elephant sighting, we failed miserably in finding Hosana, and hopefully this morning will go slightly better than it did yesterday. Now, the Ellies, though, have moved off. So for those of you that are wondering, they are no longer about. It seems as though they have moved, which is quite nice. It means that little one is doing just fine and that there's no complications, because if there were complications, you would find that that little one would still be there and the herd would still be sticking around. So nice to see that they are moving and that our little one's legs have firmed all over the place. I surmise that it will still be quite wobbly for the next few days and weeks as well. Let's just check around the Mulawati. Maybe not. Let's not check around the Mulawati. I'm actually in Jigger today and not in Rusty, so I forgot that Jigger's signal is not quite as good. So while I try and get through the Mulawati without too many gremlins, let's go back across to Steve and Rusty and see if he's had any tracks for those wild dogs.
No tracks and no dogs, folks. We're on the radio now, and one of the gentlemen from last night who sort of had tracks after James left the wild dogs around Gallagher Pan reckon they were heading west towards our far western boundary. So we are driving the cut line north of us here. On the right hand side of me here is Buffels Hook. We're on the northern boundary and we're going to kind of do a loop around, and if they don't cut, then we'll come back in and start working those roads. These dogs, or dogs in general, when they do move, they don't have the same boundaries that your other cats seem to have. They tend to move within hours or minutes even. They can, oh, that's an old track. Hours or minutes they can move from one side of the Sabi sands to the other, and it is quite a phenomenal feat. I do believe that these dogs actually hail from the inside the Kruger Park itself, and because we have no fence, there's quite an old lion track there, and someone's shoe mark, which I think has spotted it again. So yeah, folks, we are going to just kind of move around the boundaries, see if anything's coming in and out of our property. It is a quite nice way of assessing the movements of animals coming in and out, and this is what you do. If it doesn't come out, then you can make smaller concentric circles within the property. I'm pretty sure if we don't have them crossing, there will be interest from people inside to assist with helping us. There is a beautiful sky coming up behind VM. Let's have a quick look at that, shall we? Just going to pull over here, folks. A beautiful sky coming with a bit of cloud. We don't foresee any rain today, but there is really, really hot temperatures across the Highveld and Johannesburg. And we're experiencing it here with very warm temperatures yesterday, and already being 70 degrees Fahrenheit this morning. I can tell you it's going to be a scorcher. But what is quite common is after days of quite warm weather, you quite often get that cold system moving through. So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 days we might get a little bit of rain, a bit of coolness. Ah, what a wonderful morning. This is probably my favorite time of the day, folks, just to sit and listen to the number of bird calls that are coming through. Not easy for you to hear them on the microphone. We've got the Cape turtle dove, the also known as the ringneck dove. You can hear some Cape glossy starlings with their very sort of erratic call in the distance. Please don't ask me to mimic that one. It's also important this time of morning, folks, to to listen, because there could be any sounds of predators. It's quite often that you can hear lions, leopards vocalizing in the morning. The air is very thin. It's much easier for them to project their noise quite far. If you've ever been in the savannah biome in this time of year, you know that waking up in the morning is the best time. The animals are still moving. It's still cool enough. They know that it's going to be a hot day. You can feel it already. So they would be moving. They'd still be doing their activities. Unless they've made a kill and they're sitting on a kill, they could still be potentially moving around. So it's important to sometimes just sit and just put your ears out, sit quietly. No roars on Djuma, which, if you're all aware of, stands for the roar of the lion. Djuma. Almost quite a nice onomatopoeic sound, Djuma. The lion, very, very vocal. But folks, we're going to go to James, who I believe has spotted something that is spotted. We'll be back with you soon.
We've got a hyena here, everybody. I'm just trying to get a position where we can view it. I'm walking very fast, which makes it difficult for Seb. So if the picture's a bit jumpy, that's my fault. It's just heading up the road here. Let's just quickly go across. You want to go straight at the hyena, because the hyena will then run away. We've got a lovely view of it. But then I'm afraid it disappeared behind a bush. Ow, that was a thorn. Gone. Yeah, there it is, going up the road. Phew. Now, we followed this drag mark all the way through the block from where I last saw you. I say we, giving myself some sort of credit for following Rex. Rex has followed it, and it's gone onto Twin Dams Road somewhere and disappeared. So we don't know where it is from there. It's quite possible this hyena is also following up on the same thing that we are. Perhaps it smells the blood that was left by the drag mark, by the hapless animal that was killed yesterday evening. Anyway, he's heading up onto she's heading up onto quarantine. Looks like quite a big hyena. We're going to continue down this way, down towards Twin Dams Road, and see if we can't pick up on further tracks. I'm wondering if Tundi didn't lose out somehow to the hyena yesterday evening. Before we do that, one of my very favourite flowers in the bush out here, a jasmine. Glorious wild jasmine, unfortunately in amongst some very severe ziziphus thorns, which is going to make it very difficult to get down and sniff. But it's so magnificent that I'm going to take the chance. Ooh. I'm actually just going to pick one. Let me pick one. There are lots of them, so I don't mind picking one. There it is. Glorious, glorious thing. There are lots and lots of good smells out here, and amazingly far fewer nasty ones. Just lovely. Now, also on Twin Dams, somewhere near where we are, Tristan Dix has managed to spot himself an eagly.
We do have an eagly, James. It is a beautiful, very puffy Wahlberg's pale form eagly. And this one is taking it very easy after it's just been dive-bombed by a fork-tailed drongo. The drongo has now departed, but this poor Wahlberg's eagle got a rude awakening when this drongo appeared, because it was sort of going for its head and trying to sort of chase it all over the place. But the Wahlbergs sat it out, and now it's got some peace and quiet, and it's just, I'm sure, enjoying the beauty of a African sunrise, because the sun is starting to come up. It's still quite dark. It's still quite chilly, which means not too many thermals around for these guys to fly, and also not really easy for them to be able to hunt just yet. They'll need a bit more light than what they've got currently. So for now, it's just about sitting, staying nice and warm, puffing oneself up to trap a bit of air against the body and to stay nice and warm until such time as the sun rises. Now you can hear in the background, you should be able to hear in the background, there's the drongos that are busy calling. So they've just moved to a different tree, that's all. They've flown away sort of to the left, and I wonder if they're not going to come back at some point and chase this Wahlbergs again. So they... Oh, pretty shot that. Nice, Darby. So they're in that tree on the left there, right at the top. They're busy sitting, calling in that area, so you see them right on the top side there. And drongos amaze me because they have so many different calls. Sometimes you've got to kind of really think about what you're listening to before you can recognize their exact call. Yesterday when we were on bushwalk, Dave and I actually saw one mimicking a pearl-spotted owlet, and it did it incredibly well, actually. It wasn't quite a pearl-spotted owlet, but it was not too far away from what a pearl-spotted owlet would make. Right, well, let's carry on. I think I just picked up tracks for Hosana here, or a leopard, should I say, going sort of southwards down Twin Dams Road, which is what I would expect. The problem is that there's so many up and down of tracks at the moment, so I'm trying to just work out exactly what's going on. There really was a lot of hyena movement yet last night. It's literally one side of the road is pretty much just solid hyena tracks. It looks like a leopard track in between that, but we know that there is one individual here. No, there's definitely a leopard track here, so I'll show you guys now where our leopard track is. But there is one hyena individual that's got a three-lobed back pad, so you've got to be a bit careful of that individual. Now, Dave, can you get that just over my shoulder, over there, back a little bit, sorry. Yeah, there we go. So there is our leopard paw print. You can see it just to the left of that stick that's got the reddish tinge to it. There are the toes coming from the stick on the right side along to the left, and then the back pad behind those toes. So that is the track for, it looks to me a little small for Hosana, I must be honest. It almost looks a bit female-like, so maybe this is Shadow or Tandy that's walking around here. But they are going towards Twin Dams, so let's quickly just go and get there before the sun gets up and maybe this animal continues to move. It seems as though it's also been hit by a few hyenas, which means that maybe, just maybe, it's already crossed out. But exciting times to be able to tracks to follow. It's always exciting when you do have tracks that you this will be. It's always a struggle when you get the boundary so close to Twin Dams that things could just easily pop off the boundary. Right, now I'm going to quickly check Twin Dams up ahead here, and while I do that, I believe Steve has also got a raptor of sorts, so let's have a look at which one he has.
Indeed we do. We have a predatory bird of the sky. I wonder if any of you folks out there can quickly comment and tell us what you think this might be. Oh! It is definitely a flying bird, that's for sure. Okay, I don't think any of you got a good opportunity to take a photo of that, but it looked like a tawny eagle to me, folks. Definitely looked like a tawny eagle, but just another moment of identification would have been nice, just to confirm. I definitely noticed that when I looked at it, it didn't have any form of crest at the back, and the beak is a little bit stronger than that of the Wahlberg's eagle. But it does take time, it does take practice to identify the difference between those two. Obviously, when the Wahlberg's turns and you get a crest, it's a definite identification. And when the Wahlberg's eagle is flying, let me see if I can show you a little picture of the Wahlberg's. The Wahlberg's eagle in flight, folks, is very characteristic of that tail. If you look at the tail, it is like a ruler. It is very straight. Very straight. There's no fanning out. It does happen sometimes when it's a bit lower and it's trying to get some elevation. And if I go across to the tawny eagle, and I'll show you the similar, the bottom, see how the feathers at the bottom, the tail feathers fan out in a big fan. So I didn't get a good look, but he did seem to have a little bit more pale underneath, which is characteristic of the tawny. But I would go with tawny eagle this morning, but sometimes, you know, the bush is full of surprises and you can never be 100%. But folks, we're going to continue on here. We've been given some information in our little ear that we're going to keep maybe a little bit of a surprise. It's got nothing to do with wild dogs at the moment. We still haven't located any tracks on this road, but we're going to keep moving forward, keep our communication up, but there is a surprise for you in about 5 minutes or so. So please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Stay with us. We might be able to see something amazing this morning. And Tristan has located or found some tracks of what seems to be the little prince. Always a favorite, always a favorite. He's definitely my friend at the moment. I've seen him a number of times. And Tristan is quite good at finding him, so I have full faith in the abilities of Mr. Tristan. What a beautiful morning. The birds are just starting to wake up, folks. They're a little bit slow today, it seems. It's not as vocal as normal. Maybe they were awake already half an hour ago. I didn't really notice. They know it's going to be hot too. But we're approaching the western side. We're close to an area called Sandy Patch now, and to Gowrie Gate, our western perimeter. And I wonder if we're going to be able to see from here. I'm just going to get on the radio quickly. Can you see them, Vildi? Forward, back. Fine there. Okay. So folks, we are right on our northern boundary. We cannot go further north, and look at what we have. It is not a leopard. It is not a lion. And I've seen this pride once before, and that female with that injury on her back leg. Yes, indeed, folks, this is the Nkuhuma Pride. They are just north of our boundary. We can see them now, but they're about probably 150 yards off. Maybe 200 yards off. It's difficult to ascertain, and there is a boy there. No, I apologize. The one individual lioness was turned quite strangely and looked like a mane. My binoculars are nowhere near as good as the screen. I should just look at the monitor. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and one cub. I can count 11 there. Don't know if you can, folks. 12, including the lioness that's walking. She's walking towards a little pan. Thirsty work being a lion. Now, some of you who are just joining us might look at a wound like that and wonder, how can the animal survive? And apparently that wound was far worse than it is now. Lions are very resilient animals. And I've seen lions with unbelievable injuries that recover. They just recover. They've got their own antiseptic, and wounds that would kill a human quite easily seem to just work very well on lions. They somehow managed to come past it all. Maybe it's because of their lifestyle. They're constantly feeding and fighting and clawing each other with very dirty feet, dirty claws and nails. There needs to be some sort of antiseptic, and they've just developed some form of immunity. Here you go, another one is joining. I might move up just a little bit here. Vildi, would you like that? Just move up just a little bit. Maybe we can get a better look just up ahead over here. As I said, folks, unfortunately we are right on our northern boundary, and we can't go there, but that's the beauty of having such an amazing camera. Just let me know when you're happy there, Vildi. Is that good? Okay. Diane and Kobe, you agree with me at Tawny Eagle. Thank you for clarifying that. I hope you maybe had a little bit longer with the screenshot, perhaps, to look in your book. It flew off and I didn't take a photo. So thank you for assisting in that identification. Here we go, there comes the second lioness. So this is the time of day these animals are active. Not sure what they've been up to. We haven't seen them for a couple of days. I'm not sure if you folks can hear on our left-hand side here. We've got this very loud chattering of the helmeted guinea fowl. Can you hear it, Lou? Okay, so that is an alarm call that these guinea fowl use, and it's often you can find predatory birds and also sometimes leopards and lions because of that call. And I don't think that those birds can see the lions. They're very far away, but I'm just going to keep my eyes in the bushes here as well. Here, they're just crossing the road, Wildy. There they are, and they go straight for the elephant dung, folks. Watch this. This is very, very interesting. Guinea fowl are the manures. Oh, he's not very interested. Maybe because of the alarm call, they're getting out of they're not going to be exposed. But normally, that helmeted guinea fowl would have scratched through that elephant dung for any leftover grass seeds. And they're also very, very, they're very, very favorable for the green matter, the half undigested grass matter or leaf matter, generally grass matter, the elephant hasn't digested. We know that the elephants feed on a huge amount of food a day, and they only digest about between 25 and 40% of it. So 60% of that is still very, very good fermented vegetation. Seeds and all sorts of insects would be in there. The flies somehow find elephant dung very quickly, and bugs and beetles this time of year. Dung beetles are very prevalent, and so your ground birds like your guinea fowl, like the guinea fowls and the franklins, they look for bugs and seeds and little grubs. So from a camouflaged cat to probably the most camouflaged bird you're going to come across, Mr. Henry has something that you put pickles in.
Now that thing is a nightjar. It does call at night. And it is sitting just below where we've heard some squirrels alarm calling. Now, just to keep you updated on our track, while you look at the nightjar, of course, the drag mark has continued down Twin Dams Road, sort of behind where Tristan was, or is, and tracks of Hosana are on top of it. Well, we know Tristan's got those tracks. But it looks to us like this kill was probably lifted off Tandi. There are squirrels alarm calling here. There are franklins alarm calling there. We're going to keep going along here and see if we can't find what it is that's calling the squirrels such consternation. Rex had tracks of a leopard in this area yesterday, and he thinks that it was Tandi. So we might be very lucky and just come across her, hopefully not too closely with that youngster around here. Is that not the most special sighting of a nightjar you've ever seen? I have taken an illegal photograph of it. I don't know which nightjar it is. I'm assuming it's possibly a fiery-necked nightjar. Looks like one of the smaller ones, so I think that's probably what it is. And they're the ones that call, "Good Lord, deliver us! Good Lord, deliver us! Good Lord, deliver us!" This one was delivered last night. Very nice indeed. Okay, let's continue. Just putting my illegal photograph-taking device away. I'm going to try and go around this way so we don't disturb it. We might get another view. Of course, Sebastian is walking with this rather unwieldy... Should we try this way, Seb? He's walking with a very unwieldy aerial above his head, so it's quite difficult for him. Mean, you say that nightjar is the coolest thing ever. It is the coolest thing ever. Well, the coolest thing ever would probably be Tundi's cub on foot, but that would bring with it the inevitable snarling Tundi. And so we'll go with the nightjar being the coolest thing ever. Rex just gone up ahead now to have a look and see if he can't pick up on what was causing the consternation amongst the squirrels. Cobalt, you're wondering about the nightjar's main source of food. Cobalt, always insects, caught on the wing. Oh my goodness. Look at it, it's looking straight at us through this little gap. Can you see? Straight through there. Cobalt, they've got these amazing mouths, and the best thing to look up if you want to is an Australian thing that's related called a frog mouth. Now the frog mouth is exactly what this thing is, basically. It's got this hugely wide mouth. You can't see it at this angle. But when you open its mouth, it almost opens the whole face out. And it's that mouth that allows it to catch insects on the wing. It's also got little whiskers on either side of its mouth that help it to direct the insects in. This is an even better shot, Seb. I'm going to take another illegal photograph. Gosh, I'm breaking the law with gay abandon here. That is just fantastic. Is that not gorgeous, everyone? If I'm managing to get a photograph, I can only imagine what a proper cameraman like Seb's managing to get. This is so rare because they don't sit like this normally. They would normally realize they'd been seen and fly off. But this chap is either terrified witless by the sight of Sebastian, probably not me, and is then therefore sitting there, or he thinks he can't be seen, which most of the time is absolutely true for the nightjar. They normally cannot be seen because they are so exceptionally well camouflaged. Hello, Val. You say this is number 75 on your bird list. That's a good return, Val. I'm going to take one more illegal photograph. This is an opportunity too wonderful to pass up. We're now standing about 12 meters or so from it, which is times 3 plus 3 is 39 feet. About 39 feet from it, which is extremely unusual. It really is tremendous. Look at the beautiful colors. Now we might actually be able to do a genuine identification job on it here. It's often quite difficult with nightjars because they look quite similar to each other, and so unless you get them sitting like this, or unless you can open up their wings, it's often quite difficult. Seb's now getting a decent angle where he can rest his hand properly. I'm going to take my app out and see if I can't find the answer to what it is. Righty. And you can maybe hear all the lovely sounds of being in the woodland here. The white-browed scrub robin. Gosh, it's wonderful. Okay, here we go. Fiery neck nightjar. This one looks very red, you know. Very red. The fiery, yeah, you see, it's the kind of it's the tail patterns that you want to look at, but they only show you the above tail patterns. I don't see any below tail patterns, and what we can see there is a very square piece of feathering down to the bottom. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a fiery-necked nightjar, a female fiery-necked nightjar. And I will show you what I mean. There is no stripe on her, there's no white on her throat though, is there?
No.
Could be a juvenile. Oh no, there's one with no, oh, it's gone. Wonderful. Okay, so I think it was a fiery-necked nightjar. I mean, I think it looked pretty much like that. You see that one?
Yeah.
And then what we can do... No.
Yeah.
And then we can do this quickly. You can see there the plate of all of their tail feathers. And what I was seeing is that sort of square at the bottom. And because it was small, I don't think it was a European nightjar male, which it could have been, I suppose, but I think they are much bigger. Alright, so we'll go with fiery-necked nightjar on that. Absolutely magnificent nightjar sighting. Let's head back across to Tristan now and find out how the tracks that he has got are going.
Well, not very well, James. As you can see by my big circle there, there is a little Hosana footprint that is going into Little Gari. So we must have missed him by not very long, because the Franklins have been alarm calling. They've been up in the trees, not very happy with life. And those tracks, like I say, go into Little Gari and in sort of a south-easterly direction. Now, it's not all hope is not lost just yet, because these tracks, while they do go into Little Gari and they are heading in a southeasterly direction, we're not very far at all from Chitwa's cut line with Little Gari. So I'm going to try and just loop round in the hope that maybe he pops out onto the Chitwa side and we can find him there. There's also apparently tracks for wild dogs in this area as well, so who knows, maybe we'll get lucky with something along the lines of one of those predators in this area. There's also tracks for a female leopard that was around Twin Dams as well, so I don't know if that's Shadow or Tundi, but they were also milling around in that area as well. Whether they met up with Hosana or not, I'm not quite sure. So that's the kind of general plan for now, is just to keep going slowly forward and see, maybe, just maybe, we get lucky. Hosana seems to have gone into Little Gari, then he came back out, then he walked along Gari Main for a bit, then back in and then back out once more. And so maybe he's just flirting with this and he'll be at this pan up in front here, because there is a pan that's close by and we've had him there many times recently. So I just want to go and double check that he's not somewhere in that area. I don't see any more tracks coming back onto Gari Main, so I think more than likely he went south and into Little Gari itself. But the road that is on the southern side of us here runs in an easterly direction, so it's going to guide him back towards this section, which is not the worst thing, unless of course he just decides to go straight over the road, which is also possible. But I'm hoping that he uses the road a little bit and pushes him more towards this pan system, and then we can try and find him here, or maybe even on the cut line for Little Gari and Chitwa. That's either one, it doesn't really matter, as long as we can try and find him. Right, now while I'm going to follow up on Hosana, and hopefully that will bring me some luck and happiness, I believe Steve is very happy and is enjoying lots of fluffy things full of joy.
Yes, and while Tristan does what he can down south there with Hosana, we have found probably one of the most vocal birds of the African savanna. This is the white-browed scrub robin, folks, and we have two of them. One is darting around underneath the bush, but this one is sitting on top, singing very proudly. If you've never seen this bird before, let us know. It is a bird that you quite often don't see, but you hear all the time. If you spend a lot of time out here, you'll notice that there's a bird call that goes on, and it gets very repetitive. And if you listen, he's playing 3 or 4 notes repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. And that is the white-browed scrub robin. You can see the white eyebrow on the eye. But if you're out here and you hear a call that you're not familiar of, and the call is a 3 or 4 repeated note, and then it changes again to another 3 or 4 repeated note that you're not familiar with. When in doubt, it's a white-browed scrub robin, and it is such a beautiful bird. He is just sitting here, singing away at his heart's content. And I mentioned on my last segment that it was very quiet, and as soon as the sun breached the horizon there, folks, the birds have just gone absolutely nuts. We hear the crested francolin calling there. I believe you can hear it. It's quite loud. What a beautiful specimen. And he's more of an insect eater. I'm not sure. I think it's a male, just because he's calling very, very prominently. And the female was dancing around in the bottom of the bush. We heard them calling, and they disappeared. And then I played his call. And I was very angry that another scrub robin who spoke a slightly different dialect happened to be in the area. And he hasn't stopped for the last 5 minutes. V, can you get that bird just above him to the back there? There we have another beautiful bird, ladies and gentlemen. A migratory bird. This is... Can anybody tell me? You see the black mask on the face, the Zorro mask, the greyish head. And if you turn slightly, you'll notice it's got a very red back. Indeed, if you were going to say a redback shrike, you are 100% correct. And the redback shrike are migratory birds that come down here from Africa for feeding. And we have plenty of them around at the moment. And as the name shrike implies, it is part of the butcherbird family, and they are quite known for impaling creatures on branches. And it sits there in a beautiful buffalo thorn tree. Hey, can you hear him calling there? Just a gentle call. The scrub robin has since departed. I don't know if you can hear that call, folks. It's very gentle, but he is the male. Very pretty male. Female's a lot more plain than he is. They do not breed, and they come all the way from the north, so north of the Sahara. They are a Palearctic migrant, and they normally arrive in November. They leave by about April, and they like very semi-arid and open woodland, and that is where we are now. And obviously they enjoy acacias for the thorns. We still have the lions in the distance, folks. They're not doing too much at the moment. Oh, there we go. 2 of them are actually moving. I was so captivated by these lovely birds. But whatever's going on, unfortunately, it's a little bit too far north for us to go, but we can watch it from here. Lions enjoying the rising sun. Look at that beautiful golden color on those lionesses. And it looks like the youngsters are all sitting behind at the back there, just animately watching and waiting. It's an important time. If it is a hunting time, the adult lionesses will move forward and do the work, and it's important that the youngsters don't get involved until they are skilled, because every time they give themselves away is an opportunity lost. I've got at least 3 lionesses in the thickets there. There were some impala just sort of north of them that they're not interested in. The impala was standing looking at them very defiantly, because that's what you do if you're a prey animal. You see the predator and you watch him. You keep your eye on him until they disappear. And look at that. Slow and deliberate. Doesn't seem to be too much intention at the moment. Ellie Belly Laugh is asking which animal's call carries the furthest, and for our ears it would probably be a lion, I would surmise, but animals that can communicate further would probably be elephants. They reckon elephants can communicate over vast distances through something known as infrasound, which is almost like a vibration that goes through the ground at very low frequencies, below 7 hertz on the scale, and we only can perceive sound at about 20, 21. But definitely the lion's roar, I would say, out here in the savannah, is one that carries quite far. Hyenas can carry quite far as well. The zebras also, their call is quite loud. Nowhere near as loud as a lion's, though. So I would definitely imply a lion would probably be the loudest. What do you think, V?
Sounds good.
Lion, hey, lion. After the hardy-dah. The hardy-dah is probably the most annoying sound. Not the loudest, but they tend to sleep in trees above our beds, and then they wake you up. Also known commonly to many as the Santon fish eagle. And if any of you have ever been to Johannesburg in South Africa, there's quite a prominent area there called Santon, and the hardy-dahs are very common in Johannesburg. And as in the bush, we have the fish eagle, which is a very nice bird and bird call. The hardy-dah frequents Johannesburg because of all the gardens and lawns, and it is quite commonly known as a Santon fish eagle. A little bit of a jibe there. But another reason why we stopped here, folks, and we're going to go back across to this side if you don't mind, Wildebeest, is we saw the tawny eagle earlier, and now we've been waiting to show you the difference between the Wahlbergs and the tawny. And here we have the Wahlbergs, and look how easy it is to identify that little crest on the top of his head. Obviously, this is not a pale morph. This is one of the darker morphs, so you can easily confuse it with the tawny. But look at that crest on the head. It also, if you compared it in size, it is slighter in build. If they sat together, there would be a few inches difference in the size of the two birds. And the beak also, if you look at it, it's not very prominent. It's quite sort of sharp and small. They have a much smaller food base than the tawny eagle, feeding on just a smaller degree. So nice to have the comparisons there. And he is just surveying the landscape, and we surmise that because the guinea fowl moved out of the bushes directly from below from where the Wahlbergs are sitting right now, so it's possible that that's why they were alarm calling. We hadn't seen him at the time, but we rolled forward and we saw him on getting a better look at the lions. But from a sunrise in South Africa and to Wahlberg's eagles and shrikes and scrub robins, I believe James showed you an amazing night show, folks. That is incredible to see. We're going to stay with these lions. We're going to go through to Miss McCurdy, who has a wonderful sunrise.
We didn't think we were going to see the sun rise at all today because the haze, the clouds, whatever you want to call it, is still sitting over the top of the Masai Mara and the Mara Triangle. And it doesn't seem to want to go away. But it has afforded us with the most beautiful view of a bright red sun and a couple of hot air balloons also floating across the plains. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? And any sunrise is a good one. Good morning again. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is none other than Jean-Ray. He's arrived back in the Mara. He's very excited, except I can only just see his eyes, his nose, and his mouth because he's got his jacket zipped up. But cold, Jean-Ray? I bet a little bit more chilly from the last time that you were here. Remember, this is a live and interactive safari, and hopefully Brent and I are going to be able to find you all sorts of wonderful creatures out here in the Mara this morning. And so if you do have any questions for us or anything along those lines, remember you can talk to us on the YouTube chat, and then you can also chat to us by just using the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Now, I live for these mornings where we get to see this view, and I wonder how clear it is from up way in that balloon. I don't know if they'd be able to see down below them, but it could be quite magical to see zebras or elephants moving through the marsh on these misty mornings. Look at the sun. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's not often that we get that beautiful red coloration. It doesn't last for very long normally, but with this cloud cover, it makes for a sunrise to actually be quite spectacular. Except when we're getting ready in the mornings, we don't get first light anymore. It's pitch black, which is quite terrifying. You have to walk around with torches and all sorts of things in order to try and get ready. Now, it's a pity there isn't a black rhino snaking through that long golden grass below the sun and the hot air balloon. That would have been even more impressive. But maybe we'll find one in a little bit, because we are heading down towards black rhino country. We're hopefully going to find some jackal pups this morning, And who knows, maybe the marsh breakaway pride, or perhaps my two favorite lioness that live up in the marsh. And on that happy note, I think that we should continue our journey to try and get there while it's still nice and cool. But not a bad way to start the safari. Okay, let's go. Make sure that there's no cars. Oh, there is a car, but they're quite far behind. Well, that's all right. Right. Now, somebody that's just a little bit further up ahead of me is Brent, and I'm sure he's going to tell you an interesting story about what was bounding on his tent last night. Let's jump a little bit ahead.
Morning, 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 and welcome to another truly magnificent morning in the Masai Mara. Now, my friend Smith, I'm being on camera. And yesterday we did a search of the long grass areas for lions and cheetah and came empty-handed. So this morning we're going to be moving at quite a brisk pace way down south towards the Tanzanian border, where there are still some short grasses left. And on those short grasses, we're hoping to find Thompson's gazelle, zebra, topi, eland, and with all of that, we hope to find cheetah, well, maybe even. So we're going to be moving quite swiftly through the top northern section of the Maasai Triangle and Mara Triangle, and straight down towards the area of the Border Boys, which is a coalition of two men cheetah. And from there, work up their way towards Salt Lake, an area where there has been a female cheetah with two cubs. So hopefully luck is on us. Remember, sorry, if you've got any questions for us. Now, of course, as you know, the best plans can fall to absolutely fall apart. And who knows, we might find lion and cheetah well before we get down south. But while we keep on moving and scouring the grasslands, let's go across to James, who has got the solution to a mystery.
We do have the solution to the mystery, and what it is the elephant afterbirth. Remember, if you were on drive yesterday evening, you'd have seen with Tristan that he managed to find a very newborn elephant, and then he managed to find the afterbirth. And that's what we found here. This is this patch. The hyena came down here, picked up the afterbirth and took it home. Now, excitingly, I think this means that there could possibly be a hyena den on Djuma at the moment. And I think we need to check the ones off Mvubu Road and off Galago Shortcut. Those are two roads to the north of the Vuyatela Dam, north of our camp. And it is possible that we have got a hyena den here at Djuma again, which would be very nice indeed, because this, when we picked up this drag mark, it must have been, let's say 2 kilometers from where we are now, 1.5 miles or so, 1.25 miles. So that's quite a long way, and it was still going north. And I must say, I think the drag mark was getting smaller and smaller, because I suspect the hyena carrying it was eating it as it went along, sort of snacking on it, and I hope it left some for the youngsters at the den when it got back. Here's a stick full of placenta. Now, I mean, it's not always very nice to look at placenta in the morning at 6 o'clock, but sometimes these things must be done. And it would have weighed probably in the region of 30 to 40 kilograms, I would have said, about 80 pounds, this afterbirth, so quite enormous, and a very good meal for whatever animal happened to find it. Excellent nutrition. Of course, it has been nourishing a little baby elephant for the last 22 months. Maybe slightly lighter than, I'm just thinking, an elephant is 100 kilograms when it's born, so 220 pounds. So maybe this thing about 20 kilos or so, 44 pounds. The smell is very strong. It smells, I suppose it smells like blood, but it doesn't smell like innards. You know that kind of well, maybe you don't, but that sort of innard smell. It doesn't smell like that. It smells very strong, very kind of iron-rich, sort of a ferrous smell. A little bit spicy, almost like cooking, but definitely not cooking, if you know what I mean. And like blood, I imagine. rich, very rich smelling. Alrighty, I think we're going to continue down here. We haven't found any tracks of Tundi, but every so often we get the squirrels alarming through here. We find the sounds of francolins sort of exploding out of the bushes. So I don't know what's going on, but Rex is fairly confident that there is a leopard somewhere around here. This is where Tristan picked up the tracks of Hosana going down towards the south. So I wonder if Hosana wasn't also investigating this afterbirth. He definitely would have eaten it if he could have wrested it from the hyena. Maybe he and the hyena had a bit of a fight. Here, it looks like it lay as well. The afterbirth, I mean. Patches of blood all over the place. Very interesting indeed. Okay, well, let's go down to the little waterhole here. Chela pan, see what we can find there. And chela, not for example, for those of you who are interested, is a frog. So this little waterhole here, very picturesque underneath its jackalberry tree, is called Chela pan, which means frog pan. This whole area smells like that afterbirth. I often think, when I describe these smells, I think people must think, oh, that's a bit disgusting. And look, it's not the most aromatic smell in the world. But I also think that when we talk about the smells of innards, for example, that are killed, I feel like human beings should smell that from time to time, because, of course, we are enormous meat eaters. And, there's a lot of debate over whether or we've actually evolved to eat as much meat as we do. But the fact that we eat as much meat as we do is almost beholden on us to sometimes smell that kind of innard smell so that we know where our food is coming from, if you know what I mean. It's almost beholden on us to go and visit abattoirs and that sort of thing. I just had that philosophical thought while I was walking towards Nchela Pan here. What have you got, Rex? Nothing. Rex is looking a bit depressed. He was looking very excited a bit earlier, but now we're going to head off down towards the west and see if we can't pick up some of Tundi's tracks. Now, Shamama, you're wondering if elephants ever eat their own afterbirths. Not in my awareness, no. Yes, many animals do, as we know. I'm trying to think, an impala will eat the amniotic sac. So that sac that same as a horse will, so the sac that the youngster comes out in, they will eat. But whether or not they actually eat the afterbirth, the placenta, I'm not sure. Anyway, an elephant definitely doesn't. They leave them, and they're a sort of hugely valued prize to scavengers or predators afterwards. Of course, there is that rather, I think, slightly disturbing tradition. Maybe it's not disturbing. Maybe we did evolve to do this of human beings doing the same sort of thing. I think you can even get recipes online, various strange newfangled health benefits, apparently. I find it all rather strange. Anyway, enormous bird track here. Let me put my hand next to it. There it is. I don't have a very enormous hand, but it's about 2/3 the size of my hand. And what that is, I think, is a saddle-billed stork. So one of the big stork species has come wandering along here. And interestingly, if you look where my stick is, can you see that, Seb? Mm-hmm. Yep. The back foot, or the back toe, is quite short and sometimes doesn't even leave an indentation, and I think that's because the bird is leaning forward most of the time, leaning forward, looking, peering into the water to see if there isn't something nice to eat. Although what you'd find that qualified as nice to eat in this pan, I don't know. I guess it would be nchelas, largely frogs. Okay, on we go from here. Well, it is always with some sense of happiness and some sense of jealousy that I must make announcements like I'm going to make now. We're going to hand you now to Tristan, who has found his prize.
I have found my prize. I have managed to find little Hosana, who's having a nice rest in the shade at the moment. So he's just sitting in one of the mitre drains off this main road. So we've decided to loop back because we couldn't find any tracks coming out on the cut line. And obviously what had happened is he had just been watching us and then slowly kind of came back out once we left. So it was good just to double back and just check again. So nice to find him, and he's, as you can see, a sleepy cat as per normal with Hosana. He seems to be at the moment having lots of lounging time, although I suppose he was up and down with his kill and has walked a little bit during the night, but he seems as though he's very sleepy at the moment. Now the thing is that unfortunately for Hosana is that he's about to get absolutely obliterated by the morning sunshine, because the sun is rising quickly and the shade that he is lying in is not going to last much longer at all. Is definitely going to get a situation where the sun is going to start receding or start getting up higher, and that shade is going to recede, and you're going to get a situation where he's going to be able to, well, going to get very hot, and then it'll be interesting to see where he goes from there, because he's kind of been weaving in and out on the southern boundary, going north south, and so I wonder if he's either going to head north or maybe he's going to go back down into Little Gari. Either way though, it's good to see him, and like I said, good to catch up with our young boy. After all, it's a situation where we haven't been seeing him much on Djuma at all, so every time he's on Djuma I get quite excited about this whole thing and always very happy to see him. Now you can see that he's sleepy because his belly is still fairly full. I mean, he didn't eat most of yesterday, but they're still quite round in the tummy, so he's got a nice full tummy and doesn't really need to worry too much about moving around this morning. I surmise though that he is going to go towards maybe a pan that is off to our eastern side, on the southern side of Chitwa, and on the northern side of Chitwa, southern side of Gari Main. So maybe that's where he'll be this afternoon. Right, well, let's sit with him and wait and see when the sun gets onto him. But while we do that, I believe James has got another spotty creature on foot.
It is a slavering hyena, and it's come along to the afterbirth site. We still got him there, Seb. Let's just see if we can get a decent view. It sat looking at us, slavering away. Now it's disappearing off into the bush now. There we go. It's coming this way. You might get it. You see the tall dead tree there? It's just gone to the right-hand side. No, it's going down into the drainage. No, sorry about that, everybody. He's gone a wall. Anyway, nice to see on Monday morning. I always like to remind myself of my Monday morning when I'm standing here at a place like Chelapan, the sun rising over my head, thinking how wonderful it is that I'm not about to go and teach some ungrateful child the guitar. Having fought through the traffic. Alright, let's get back to Steve. I'm not sure if he's still with the lions, but he's got some quite unusual startlings.
Indeed we do, and I believe you've just seen some interesting hyena activity around our elephant location last night, ladies and gentlemen. And what we have here is some birds in the tree that are doing their morning ablutions. They are a gregarious species, which means you find them in quite large groups together, and they breed together as well. And what you can see there is a wattled starling, and for those of you who haven't identified them before, they are really quite a special looking bird, and they're not showing complete breeding at the moment. Once we've viewed them, I'll show you a picture, but the males develop these very yellow sort of skin patches on the face and these black wattles that dangle down next to the eye. They can accumulate really large numbers, but what they're doing now is enjoying the morning sunshine. They've moved away from wherever they've been roosting, and they are preening. Very common, but they are also quite nomadic. They do move around in their large groups in response to food, which is normally primarily insects, but they will also feed on fruit and nectar. Quite a beautiful bird when that breeding plumage is out, and when I say the breeding plumage, it's all got to do with that face. You can kind of see the yellow. There's a little bit coming through there on some of those individuals, but I don't think they've bred already, or maybe they have bred already. There they go, off they go. So the advantages of staying in groups obviously benefits them to not staying on their own, and by doing that, it's quite interesting, they stay safe. So if we can just have a look at the screen here, there you can see the representation of what the male looks like in the breeding season, and as soon as he stops breeding, he just reabsorbs that funny wart-like protrusion on his face, which is quite amazing. Could you imagine you want to suddenly look sexy for the ladies, you develop this, and then when it's done you just suck it back into your face. Brings a new meaning to the word liposuction. But folks, another reason we stopped is I would like to continue my story on the African weeping wattle, which we have behind us here. It is a marvelous tree, and I'm sure VM can get it in the shot there now with the light. For those of you who missed it this morning, I've decided to do a tree a day just to give you some interesting facts. I'm going through a wonderful tree book there, the Sabi Tree Spotters book, and if you look at these lovely yellow flowers, the name Feltiforum Africanum is the scientific name, and the Feltiforum has got to do with the shield shape female parts of the flower. Very difficult to see. Maybe sometime with a microscope on Jigger we might be able to have a look at it. But there's nectar, and the bees absolutely love these trees. Okay, so what we saw, I think, a couple days ago is Hosana, who I believe has been found on the road, was actually enjoying this Feltiforum, or this weeping wattle. He had that baby kudu, which we finally found out was in fact a baby kudu, up a tree very similar to this. So quite useful not only for bees but also for leopards and their kills. And in Zimbabwe, the roots and the leaves are known as a panacea, which is actually what they believe to be a cure-all. So it's kind of like one of those A to Z medicinal plants in Zimbabwe where the witch doctors, the sangomas and yangas, would prescribe it for all sorts of pains and ailments. And you can actually deworm yourself with a decoction of the bark. If you have a problem with your body and you're not taking any deworming agents, which is something that you should do every now and again, then you take a decoction, which means you steep the bark in some boiling water, and then for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then you strain it out, and then you basically drink that liquid, and it should purge whatever you have inside. But we had quite a few interesting birds here. Unfortunately, we missed them. Right up on top, if you can have a look at that dead branch VM we saw before, we had a female what was it? It was a female woodpecker, bearded woodpecker, that was using that lovely branch at the back there as a drumming post. And the drumming post is sort of a communication where the male and female come up onto sort of like a really nice hollowed limb, and they hit their head like this very, very hard. I can't imagine what it must feel like to take your face and smash it into the bough of a tree, but the woodpeckers do that, and they'll often find a tree like that that's got a nice echo, a nice sort of resonance to it, because the louder it is, the bigger their territory will be. And quite interesting, because their beak is quite long compared to their head, and I can show you a photo, but how are you able to smash your head against a tree without causing irreparable damage? Well, the woodpeckers, folks, have got a tongue that is actually attached to the base of the skull, and it comes around the brain casing like that, and then it also extends out for when they're feeding. So it acts as like a helmet, a shock. But if you've ever hit your head with a helmet, it is not pleasant, but that's how they've evolved. We would not be able to do it, and I know that there's huge discussion in the American football industry about brain injuries because of the head collisions that humans encounter. We were never designed to have headbutts like what's going on in those sort of things. Rugby in South Africa, the guys also take really big knocks. All sorts of things have changed over the years with regards to legislation, and if the guy has an injury or if he has a concussion on field, he has to go off. These certain things are important. We look at, here's the woodpecker here. Beautiful. The zygodactyl feet, which allow it to cling onto the branch like that. There's almost no purchase, but with 2 toes forward and 2 back, allows them to hold on quite nicely. And if you can see at the base of the tail, base of the picture, the tail is very, very stiff and hard, and it actually acts like a tripod with the 2 feet anchored and the tail anchored on the bark. It makes them very, very balanced. If you can imagine trying to hit something like this, your whole body's moving, but you add a third bit of leverage over there, and it's a much more sort of solid impact. Anyone who's seen those cranes that pick up things, they put down 4 legs, enables the thing not to wobble, works in a similar sort of fashion. And that is the woodpecker. So folks, I hope you're enjoying the facts about the wattle this morning. I'm pretty sure there's some more interesting stuff going on out there. I'm just going to plug myself in to make sure I'm on track with what's going on. But apologies again for the moan. My quads are feeling quite sore after some strenuous squats and lunges yesterday with Mr. James Henry, who is on foot, and I wonder if he's feeling any adverse effects from his amazing workout yesterday. So from me to another friend, Tristan has got the Little Prince, and he will be telling you whatever's going on.
Well, he's still fast asleep at the moment. He's not in any way interested in being around and moving too much just yet. But you can see the sun is now starting to hit him on the face, and so soon that's going to get far too warm for him to be lying right out in the open, and then he'll probably stand up and try and find himself another shady spot. Knowing him, it'll probably be in the shade of one of the cars because, well, you know how he is. He's often a very relaxed individual. For those of you who don't know who he is and have just joined us, he's a young male leopard that is very, very, very close to the hearts of most of those that, well, a lot of viewers as well as all the staff that work here, because he was born just under 2 years ago, and he was born to a female that was incredibly famous, and she was a female that really was quite incredible in the way that she was able to raise cubs, and her success rate with cubs was probably the best out of any leopard that I've seen in any area. And so she managed to have a lot of different cubs, and this was her last litter, and unfortunately she then disappeared when he and his sister were about a year old. Since then, he's taken to kind of adult life fairly well, considering that he was only just a year when he was abandoned or when he was orphaned, and he's then kind of gone on his own, and he's managed to find all kinds of food items and things to survive in the beginning, and now he's become an incredible hunter. He's able to kill pretty much anything these days. We see him with adult impalas, we've seen him with all kinds of different things, and so he's taken to life really, really good. The other thing about him is that he's an interesting character in that he'll spend a lot of time with other leopards, which is unusual because most of the time a young male leopard approaching either a dominant male or a female that's got different cubs generally is not very tolerant of that individual, but yet with him he seems to somehow be able to get away with it, and he kind of plonks himself down next to all kinds of different leopards, and so the interactions that we've seen with him have been something phenomenal. So he's an amazing little cat, and one that, like I say, everybody is very fond of. He's got a very curious nature, and he's an individual that has provided many hours of entertainment for us. So I'm always happy when we can find him and see him and see what he gets up to. Like I say, for now he's going to be sleepy, but you'll see that he'll wake up soon enough. The sun is already getting quite warm, and given that he's lying right out in the open like he is, I'm pretty sure that he is going to start waking up at some point and then trying to find some sort of shade. I don't think he's going to move far, but there definitely will be shade. You can see where our vehicle shade kind of ends there. You can see Dave. Dave, you can wave there if you want to. There's Dave waving next to Hosana. And so you might find he'll stand up and just kind of saunter a few steps and then just plop down next to us, knowing that we'll still provide shade for a little bit longer. So definitely don't think he's going to be down all morning. You can see he's already kind of, his head is starting to move. You might see a bit of yawning before he stands up, even maybe a bit of rolling around. They often do that when they're kind of starting to get warm. They kind of roll just to try and find a position that's a little bit better. Right, now I'm going to sit here and enjoy Hosana and his relaxed demeanor, but something James Henry has found also has spots, but is not necessarily that relaxed and can be quite painful if it gets you.
It can be quite painful if it gets you. This is the velvet ant, of course, and its most notable feature is that it is not, in fact, an ant. It is a wops. And it is a female wops, and it can sting. She's got quite a nasty sting on her. The male of the velvet ant wapses, I believe, has got wings, but they're slightly less distinct and much less easy to identify. So this wingless but highly stinged wasp is known as the velvet ant, and there are many, many different kinds of these flightless wasps. Now, I just discovered something quite interesting. This thing freezes every time it gets a fright, and it started to get a bit enthusiastic about life before they managed to come across to us to see it. And what I did was I just hit the ground next to her, and she immediately froze, which was extremely useful to find out. Now, she's got beautiful colours, sort of maroon, I guess you'd describe it, or burgundy, and then the black and off-white. But they come in a variety of sizes, and I've seen them about half the size. This one's about, shall we say, 3/4 of an inch? No, about half an inch. Just over a centimetre long. And I've seen them as small as probably 4 millimetres, half a centimetre or so. And I've seen them as big as at least an inch. So there are lots of different species of these velvet ants. And just to remind you, they are wapses. Now, the wapses and the ants, of course, belong to the same order, that of the Hymenoptera. And also in that order, of course, are the bees. But it does not include the flies. Marvellous. Alrighty. Very exciting. Hosana's got up. Unfortunately, he's going the wrong way.
He is going the wrong way, and he's also lay back down again. So even though he did go into Little Gari, at least we can still see him. I don't know what he's up to. He's almost being like a little sheep, and he's just grazing all the grass around there and also having a bit of a grooming session. But he's found himself a much better spot to lie in, nice and shady and comfortable inside there. So it's a far better place for a leopard. It's also a lot more camouflage for him to use should anything else start to move into this area. You can see he's kind of got his nose up and sort of looking around. I wonder if maybe there isn't something moving in the distance that he was interested in. Nope, he's decided to go back to grooming again. Such is the way that he is. He'll kind of groom himself quite a bit, and also you'll find after they've been lying down like that, it's often the case is that they do a lot of grooming just to try and kind of get rid of any sort of parasites that he picked up walking through the grass, or any sort of loose fur that he might have gotten by rolling around on the ground. So you will hear also a number of cars driving around us, and that's because there are vehicles that are joining the sighting, and so there is a lot of noise at this stage. Hopefully everything will all settle down fairly quickly, and that we'll have a situation where it will be a little quieter once again. You can see Hosana just takes it in his stride there. He's not too fussed by the fact that there are vehicles around. He's fairly unperturbed by the fact that they are here. So, but I think that's where he's going to spend the rest of his afternoon or his morning. Is he's, like I say, found himself the perfect little spot. It's nice and shady, and like I say, it's protected by grass all the way around him. So he should have shade there for quite some time. He won't just lose the shade quickly this morning. There's going to be a lot of shade all the way around that little area. You can see it's a fallen over tree as well, and quite thick on his left side, which is where the sun is coming from. So I think he's chosen very well, little Hosana. You've put yourself in a very good spot, and I'm pretty sure he's going to thoroughly enjoy having a good nap inside that nice, cool, long green grass. You can imagine with a little bit of moisture that's on the grass how cool it must be to lie down in that area as opposed to being in the hot sun like he was a little earlier. Hopefully he continues his movement though to the east, and by this afternoon he's then on Chitwa. That would be the ideal situation, because otherwise I don't think we will see him this afternoon. If he goes any further south, then he's going to be into Little Gari, and that will be the end of it for us. Unfortunately, we won't be able to follow him any further. Joshua, you're wondering how long I think Hosana and Tamba will be around Djuma until the older males stop tolerating them. Difficult to say. It depends on what happens with these older males. Oh, goodness, there he goes. Sleep time. It depends on what happens with the older males. So it depends on how Tingana goes. If Tingana manages to stay alive and to be sort of a animal that can kind of carry on dominating, then I probably would imagine not too much longer. Maybe in the next 6 months or so, both of them are going to probably catch a bit of a wake-up call, particularly Hosana, because he's getting quite big now, and he scent marks and he does all kinds of other things. And so I would imagine that he would be an individual that might just maybe sort of get chased off. What could also happen is Tingana might get ousted by, somebody else, or get pushed out, and that then allows these two to just fly under the radar a little longer, and they're able to kind of stick around. Or Tingana, just because he's getting older, just is comfortable with the two of them as young as they are, that they're not really a threat to him at the moment, and he just allows them to stay, and we could see them still here in a year's time, which would be quite phenomenal. I'm secretly hoping that that's what happens, is Tingana just kind of feels like, well, they're here, I'm not going to worry about them, and they're not posing any threat at the moment. And then by then they'll have grown big enough and strong enough, particularly Hosana, to maybe then even challenge and to then stay in this area. That would be a first prize for me, was then we'd still be able to follow Hosana around in this section. Ultimately, though, we do want both of them to move out for the simple reason that genetically they are so closely related to most of the females in this area that it would be better if these young boys then pushed away and spread the genes somewhere else, because you must remember that the females that are around this eastern block are Shadow, Tandi, and Kuchava. Now Kuchava is Tandi's daughter, and Shadow and Tandi are related to Hosana. They basically his older sisters, should I say. And then Tandi is obviously related to Kuchava, that's her daughter, and so they would be mating with their step daughter, if that makes sense, or something like that. Right, now there's another vehicle that's just leaving quickly, so we're going to probably also carry on and move off. The visual at the moment is not really very good, but we'll see how we go. And while we do that, I believe that Taylor Mack, who's out and about in the Masai Mara, sorry if I'm squinting a bit, the sun is right there, is still driving around, and hopefully she'll have some luck.
We have got elephants. It looks like they're frozen, don't you think? But it is two youngsters playing around this morning in the mist, which is always very, very nice to see. And the marsh always provides the most stunning views. Of course, you've always got the grass, you've got the trees in the background. There's so many different things to look at. But we've got a third contender joining this morning, a slightly older bull, who I reckon will probably boss these young fellas around quite a bit. They don't really look like they want to play with him. And I don't blame them. I'd rather play with somebody my own size and it be an equal match. Is that all? Is that all you're going to show us this morning? And that's not even a bull. It looks like is it a cow there? Yeah, it looks like one cow. My bad. So one young bull, one cow, not tolerating probably a younger siblings, or at least a cousin. Yes, play with him. And they do look like they want to play this morning. I'd love to know what they're saying to one another. Are they being rude? Is it smack talk? Are they trying to tease one another, encourage a bit of an argument? No, the youngster, I think, has realized that he's a lot smaller than the other one. But we have also got a breeding herd, and just as we arrived, it was quite interesting. There were two cows. The big cow that we can see now, who I would assume would be the matriarch, and then there was another cow. And this lovely lady here, she actually pushed her around quite a bit, so I don't know what was going on over there. And it is quite common to see, I suppose, these little domestics between the various elephants. Maybe it was one of the older siblings pushing a younger calf, and she didn't like that very much. But there are. That's the tiniest little elephant in this herd. And they're going the complete opposite way. Where are you going? Catching up. We did watch another one as well from very far distance make a run for it, as if I'm free, and then you could see all the other elephants chasing after it as if to say, no, come back. But she's a big girl. I'm just noticing now her tusk coming through. That tusk on the right hand side is huge in comparison to her left tusk, which it looks like she's maybe broken. Wow, look at that. Huge differences. And just pausing for a moment because her calf is suckling, as you can see. Amazing how there's not much hurry this morning. Sometimes we see the elephants and they're on the move and they have somewhere to be, like heading across the Mara River. I don't think this lot is maybe going to cross the Mara River. I think they might go feed in the forest for the day, where there's lots and lots of vegetation, but grab a few trunkfuls of grass before they head into that thicket. And also the diospyros trees have still got all that fruit on it, so they are feeding on the fruit. Yesterday when I went safari parkouring, we found lots of elephant dung down in the forest, and you could actually see exactly what they were eating. Who was that? It sounded a bit like a trumpeter hornbill. I'm not exactly sure. I did see some crowned hornbills sitting up. Oh, it does sound like trumpeter. Sorry, I'm just saying, I don't know where it is though. It sounds very, very far away. Where are the birds that are flying? What? Oh, it's there's some more. There's some black and white cast hornbills. Chandra, I don't know if you can see them, but basically to your 9 o'clock, straight down there, on those massive trees, no, far to the left of those ones, if you keep panning across, you'll go past that shrub, and then up top on those trees, if you go in there, there we go, center of your screen now, you can see the black and white just sticking out. So there we go, black and white cast hornbills. That's quite interesting. I didn't realize they made such a similar call. Let's just have a quick look. I'm going to bring them up on my bird app, but they're singing away. The two of them. They're also crowned hornbills. Are they crowned? Not crowned. Trumpeter. Let me have a look. I've forgotten what all these birds look like now. No, those are definitely the black and white cast. So, unfortunately, I don't have the black and white cast call on my phone. But you can ask maybe Brent to play it for you, but it does sound quite similar to the trumpeter hornbill, and I can also hear hornbills. Doo doo. Doo doo. And if you come here very early in the morning, you'll be lucky enough to hear the Varro's eagle owls. So this is a very special place. Again, if you are planning a trip to the Mara Triangle, to the Masai Mara National Reserve, try and get out as early as you can. Have breakfast a little bit later. The food can wait, but it is one of the most amazing experiences is to come down to an area like this, either on the banks of the Mara River or the Talak or the Sand, one of them, and sit and listen to all the different bird life. It still sounds like it's waking up a little bit, but maybe you can hear. So let's try and see if we can hear all the different birds. I'm going to sit very quietly now. Should be able to hear the tropical bobos. You can hear the southern ground hornbill. And of course the chatter of those black and white cast hornbills too. Now imagine being in the thick of that forest. How incredible it would be just sitting very, very quietly. It actually makes me quite nervous not being able to see what's around me and just hearing leaves rattling, the crunching of grass underneath a hippo's foot. It would actually be quite a daunting experience. And there's a couple of smaller birds that are tweeting away that I have absolutely no idea what they are. It does sound like there's a palace or something shouting about, and there's the sun just trying to burn through some of those clouds, although it's looking a little bit on the clearer side down towards the east. Very cool though, always quite nice to see. So our plan now is to actually carry on along this road, along the forest road, and Jandre has just told me that he's still never seen a leopard in the Mara. So what we will do is we'll carry on along this forest road, because I haven't seen any lions in the usual spots, so they're elsewhere at the moment, or just hiding away from us. We'll see if we can find them along here, and if not, we're going to head down past towards Little Governors, towards where we've seen those leopard tracks before, going up and down along the most eastern corner of the Mara River. And I think that would be quite a nice treat for Jandre. I'd also like to see a leopard. I'm sure you'd also like to see some more spots, well, not spots, rosettes in the Mara, although you've already had your daily dose, haven't you? Which is still quite nice. Now, I have had it before where I've driven along the forest and, not really had much luck in terms of wildlife, and then all of a sudden saw a topee that was not happy about something, and then found a herd of impala that was snorting, looking into the forest, and 2 lioness appeared. So we know that they do go in here and move around in here, and I'm sure when they're hunting, it could be bushbuck, there'll definitely be lots of tuk-tuks in there, hippos, buffalo, lots of food along the Mara River and in the forests. So it is a hot spot. Right, so we'll keep bumbling about here, and hopefully we're going to have some lion luck today, or perhaps some leopard luck. Steve down in the Sabi sand has had a bit of luck this morning. Will it continue? I don't know. Is he going to have to do a bit of birding with you?
We love birding, Taylor. Absolutely love it. Do, 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 do. The ground hornbill, folks, I love that call. Absolutely love that. They say, how much is it? £7, 7 shillings. That call is heard from a very long way. I think someone asked me earlier, what's the loudest animal? And the ground hornbill, southern ground hornbill, is probably up there. You can hear them over vast distances, but like the lions, they like to call when the air pressure is very, very low. So, folks, we continued on after our birds there in the trees and all that, and we had some audio of elephants in this area making quite a little bit of noise, but we haven't managed to find anything yet. What we did find on the last road we drove was the tracks of the wild dogs, and they have crossed north, and it seems that I missed them before, because we actually went along the northern boundary, but probably at about the same time we got news of those lions is when I stopped looking hard at the ground, and my bad, the tracks have gone north. So these dogs move, they're out of the property now. We had a fantastic time with them yesterday. We are continuing on here. We had a little brief visual of a kudu there. I apologize that I started with the ground hornbill calls, but when I heard Taylor had found a ground hornbill, got me very excited. You can just see her now, wildebeest, just moving through the bushes there. You see how tentative she walks, ears forward. There's a couple more on the other side of the road that she's probably going to try get to. So if we just sit here, we might see her cross. But she moves very, very slowly. There's been wild dog in the area. There's hyena tracks all over the place. We had some little tracks of little babies as well. Semi-babies, should I say. Not completely. Not the ones Ralph has been showing you up in the Mara. We haven't seen or don't know of any in the area. I'm sure there are hyena den sites somewhere in the Sabi sands. There she comes. And in the background you can hear the orange-breasted bushshrike. Also the whistling herd boy, the black-crowned chagra. Yeah, the characteristic chirr of the crested barbet, and it's a nice sort of the long-billed crombeck. The birds are definitely alive with us this morning. And from animals that walk through the bush that have hair, James has something that likes to attach itself to the hair and drink their blood.
Indeed we do. A large male rhino tick is what we have here, sitting on the edge of a piece of grass waiting for a rhinoceros or something like that to walk past, whereupon it will attach itself to the skin and begin the process of blood sucking. Ugh. Now they are quite attractive. I'm just going to hold this one still because the wind's blowing him a bit. So I will attempt to hold it still for you. As you can see, he's got quite remarkable colours. And I wonder if his coloration, this orange and black colour, isn't in some way an attempt to warn off predators. He's sitting right out in the open, very obvious indeed. And it's possible that he's coloured like this in order to try and pretend that he's toxic. I don't think he is poisonous. I think he's just standard issue tick material, which means that he'd happily be eaten by a bird if they could find him. And they would easily find him exposed out here, especially in the sunlight. So I wonder if perhaps he isn't trying to con everything into believing that he's very, very poisonous. Now, the other thing I must tell you is that it is now 20 to 7 in the morning, roughly, and I think the temperature is probably already about 26 degrees Celsius. That is quite something, and I suspect that it's going to be a beastly, beastly hot day. As I say that, a very kind cloud has just slipped across the sun, which is most mercifully received, because it's already really hot, despite the fact that it isn't yet 7 o'clock on a Monday morning. Again, most pleased that the term Monday morning is able to be used in a context like this. Marvellous stuff. All right, we're heading towards Treehouse Waterhole now. Rexon's just doing some checking for some tracks there. Good morning, First Lady. You say, is that the kind of tick that could make you sick? First Lady, it could possibly make you sick, yes. I'm not sure if a rhino tick is a purveyor of tick bite fever or rickettsia. Yeah, I probably imagine it is. Something like that, though, you'd probably find on your body. Hang on a second. There's a lot of oxpecker activity. You must always just be careful when you hear that zzz, 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 zzz of the oxpeckers. It means that they are looking for ticks, but not ones on the ground, on animals. It could be something as innocuous as a warthog, something as dangerous as a buffalo. I don't see any buffalo there. So let's get back to the tick story. A tick like that is so big that it would be very unusual unless you had the hygiene of a particularly unhygienic thing. You'd probably find that tick on you rather quickly, and so before it could inflict damage. It's the smaller ones that sit on you for a while, manage to bite you, and manage to get the bugs into your body, the germs into your body. It's a parasite, basically, that can be killed with antibiotics, but they've got to be small enough to remain invisible for a sufficient time to get that stuff into your body. And those big rhino ticks are, I think, rather too large. Rexon looks like he may have found something here at Treehouse Waterhole. I can smell waterbuck. Maybe that's what the oxpeckers were going for. What have we got, Rex? Okay, he's got something small. Come this way. Let's be quiet. He didn't shout it at me. He just kind of showed with his hand. Sun's coming out again. Four eggies. Now, Rex thinks that he's very obviously pointed out where these eggs are for me, but underneath here. Oh no, in here. Look at this. What is this, Rex? It is a testicular. Look at this nest. It's got 4 eggies in it. That is just magnificent. I just want to see quickly. I can't find a picture of a testicular nest. How cool is that? Where is the rattling testicular? Oh. What if one hatched?
No, it's just hard to see the egg in there.
Yeah, it's very difficult to see the eggies.
Maybe from another angle.
Let me move out the way. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
That is definitely the rattling testicular. Let me bend it forward for you slightly.
Yes, thank you.
I just don't want to disturb it.
Of course. We're going to have leaves. Let's see.
You should just be able to see that. Maybe. Not really.
Dark
It's
in
too
there.
dark in there. Anyway, there are 4 little eggs in there. Very cool. Okay, we've got a battle royale going on in the Masai Mara. Let's head over there now.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Mara Triangle, where we've got hyenas, we've got lions, we've got baboons shouting, we've got impala snorting. It is all happening in the marsh. Remember how I just described that sighting to you? It's kind of a similar one. Now, I don't know if these lionesses have maybe got a kill just around the termite mound, and that's why the hyenas are hounding them. Alice, are you going to let me know when you're ready? Well, let's see what actually happens now, because now the hyenas have started settling down. But there was some really, really nice interaction. Let's see, I'm just having a quick look around here. So I suspect it's my favorite 2 lionesses that like to live in the marsh, that I'm sure were once a part of the Marsh Pride, but have broken away from the breakaways. So what are they? Broken away squared. But they do join up with the other 3 lionesses. Here the baboons are happy. Even though they're shouting, the ones are shouting in the tree, the others are down on the ground feeding. They can't be too bothered by the fact that there's lions and hyenas around. Okay, cool. Alice, I'll let you know. Let's just see how this all plays out. Just because everything has settled down now and the one lioness has actually already walked off. I thought we were going to have a squabble over a carcass. But perhaps they don't have any. Maybe the hyenas were just sort of investigating. You did see there was another vehicle on safari with us too. They got here way before us. We took the scenic way around. We should have in fact come here. And so I suppose sometimes it is important to sit quietly and listen, because you can hear everything that's going on. I just wish we could get in front of that termite mound, but unfortunately we are in a non-off-roading area at the moment. I wonder if these hyenas are just pestering these lionesses, which is not an uncommon thing. It's actually a very common scene out here, especially when you have big clans of hyena, and the clan that lives around here is particularly large. It's that same clan that we saw running away with the remnants of the hippo carcass when the Chitwa boys actually killed a hippo was it a few weeks ago now? It feels like just the other day. Just seeing if there's anyone else coming around. No, I think for now we'll hold off on that action broadcast. Just everything is quietening down now. But we never know. But there's definitely one sub-adult hyena. That one over there doesn't look fully grown just yet. Still nice and fluffy. Going out on an adventure, though old enough though to be joining the clan if they do go out hunting. Not very young, probably, I don't even know how old. Maybe between a year and a half, maybe a bit older than that. However, that's a fully grown hyena. But just the 3 of them. There may be 1 or 2 more lurking in the long grass, just hanging around. Now, as you look at that hyena, so I'm just seeing where the other lioness is going. She's disappearing off into the forest. Hopefully another doesn't follow, because that'll be the end of our sighting. Straight ahead, just to the right of this nyalaberry. There we go. So again, we just arrived too late. I'm not really sure what has happened here. It doesn't look like they've eaten anything. They haven't got big bulging bellies. But you can see what I mean when I say they do spend quite a bit of time in these forests. Whether it's for just not keeping cool, for hunting, you know, it'd be a great place to stash cubs. She's even just paused for a minute. And we have seen that the Chitwa males as well spend quite a bit of time in here. What she's looking at. There were a few giraffe heads that I could see. If you go a little bit to the right, you'll see that there is a giraffe. It looks kind of like a tree at the moment though. It's very far away. That's just watching that lioness. Maybe the lioness is watching the giraffe. I don't think she's going to go charging after it on her own. very, very busy in the forest at the moment. Oh, it's crazy though. It's an almost complete replica of the sighting we had only a little while ago. And hyenas? Is there something there that you are being so persistent and not wanting to move away? Again though, when there's a big male lion around, normally the hyenas scatter. I don't really want to have anything to do with the lions, but because it's just the two of them here, they're going to take advantage and be a bit of a pest. At least they've given this lioness a break now. The lions are much, much bigger than the hyenas. I think it's best that they be wary. Oh, there's lots going on. I don't know where to keep looking. Just quickly have another look, see if I can see anything on the floor. No. I don't think they've got a kill there. They look relatively lean, in fact. Maybe, hopefully they come out, that other lioness comes out of the forest and then they go searching for maybe some warthogs. Or maybe there's warthogs in the burrow there. Who knows? Now, a very interesting question from Proud Cat Mama, and you're wondering why are lions important to the ecosystem? Well, it's very important to have predators around. Firstly, they help keep the population of wildebeest, zebra, impala, buffalo, hippos. They help keep those populations in check so that there aren't too many of them. Also, lions are very good scavengers, so there's not a lot of waste when lions and hyenas and the rest of the predators are around. They're a cleanup crew too. So a combination of two things there, making sure that any rotting carcasses and things are well sorted out, and then of course to control the populations of the herbivores. So that would be the most important thing, and that they're why they are important to the ecosystem. I can't see that lioness anymore. Sorry, I'm just having a look around me, because we know with this breakaway pride that sometimes they like to join. Sorry, I'm shuffling in my seat. There you go. What have you got there, girl? Are you going to get up now? They are big lioness. They really, really are massive creatures in comparison to the lions in the Sabi sand, that's for sure. Right, we'll sit here and see what develops between the multiple species that we have in front of us. Brent has got one species, but many of them.
Well, we've done about 50 kilometers already this morning, and quite chilly 50 kilometers, so quite the opposite to what James, Tristan and Steve are experiencing. And you might have seen there's quite a lot of game around here. Behind the buffalo, zebra, topi, nice big herd of buffalo. So this is the most game we've seen in quite a while. Now, we've covered a lot of distance, as I said, and we saw maybe 5 or 6 elephants. And the moment we've dropped down here onto the border of Tanzania with a lot shorter grass, immediately we've got a lot more animals. Oh, there we go. There's a hyena running off there. Now, this will be the same clan that has the two leucistic hyenas. Let me just, you got him a little bit more to the right. Sorry, my bad. Left. Whoa, stop. There we go. Zoom. A little bit left. There it is. Not one of the leucistic ones, but part of the same clan. This is the area where we have the opportunity to see those leucistic hyenas. What did you do, hyena, that you're so guilty? Or what did you hear that's got you running down south into Tanzania? So this is one of the wildest parts of the Mara. And not too many vehicles come down here too often. The only time people really come down here is to look for cheetah. And that's what we're looking for today. Well, just to the left of the hyena there, Adrian, there's another animal running. What's a bird, in fact. There you go. A male ostrich going for a morning jog. A hyena and ostrich are about to collide. But neither... Oh, there's another hyena. Head popping up in the distance. Also, not one of the leucistic ones, unfortunately. So, neither poses much threat to the other at the moment. Unless there's a nest around, then that male ostrich might attack the hyena. and the hyena might get to the nest, but it looks like they're just going to pass like ships in the sea of grass. So Taylor told me that 2 or 3 days ago, the Border Boys, that coalition of 2 male cheetah, crossed into Tanzania. So they should be crossing back on their normal patrol routes today or tomorrow. So if we have no luck today, I'll definitely be back down here in the south tomorrow. Now, the main reason I've come down here is if we just keep panning from that ostrich along in the distance there, a little bit further along, you'll start seeing there's some topi, but as we keep going, there's zebra, there's lots of animals in the distance. So the grass is a bit shorter here, so the animals are still feeding on it quite heavily. What do we got there? Just topis, and I saw some zebra behind the buffalo, I think. And you can see that misty conditions are still prevailing here, keeping it quite cool, which is obviously good for the predators. The predators are going to keep moving. There we go. What do we got down there? We got some zebra. Quite difficult to see them in this misty weather. So from here we're going to leave our big herd of buffalo, and I'm going to go around and check all the Balanites trees there the Border Boys like to hang out. Now it's quite nice to see these buffalo not running, and I stopped quite far away from them and they came to us. So there's quite a few of the animals down here are not as relaxed as other parts of the Mara because they don't get to see many vehicles. Oh, but my good friend Tristan is trying to make me jealous this morning because he's got my favorite animal.
We do indeed, Brent Leo Smith, and they're about as wild as your wild part of the Mara and yourself, except that at the moment they're all very sleepy. So they've just had a big, I believe they made a kill this morning, and so we've been just waiting to try and get into the sighting, and obviously there's a few cars that were around, and so now that they've had a drink, I'm pretty sure this is where they're going to fall asleep. I don't think they're going to do too much more for the morning. They all have fairly full bellies. They look as though they're quite hot and tired as well, and so I think we're going to have resting puppies for the morning. I don't think they're going to get too active just yet. Well, you never know. Maybe an impala comes down towards the water or something, and that might trigger them to chase again. But it is the Investec breakaway pack, so it's the pack of 8 that we have here, which is one that we saw yesterday with Steve and James. They both, well, they were hanging around Djuma, and then they've done a big loop down to the south from Torchwood side. So we're quite busy during the evening and early morning this morning, and quite easy to recognize them. In particular, the dog on the far right. So there's a dog that's sitting by itself way away from all the others, even further. There we go, Dave. So that dog there is the easiest one of the whole pack to recognize. You see on his left shoulder he has a very, or she is, the he or she, he, that's right. He's got a massive big white patch and then a very white leg that he's got there, and then the little sort of round circles that almost looks like a dog's face. So the 2 eyes on top, and then the sort of nose coming down from there. So that's how I always think of this one, and quite easy to recognize, much more white than any of the other dogs that we've got in this area at the moment, and so easy member of the pack to recognize. But always good to catch up with the dogs. Obviously they're animals that we sort of struggle to have consistently, even just because of their sheer movement that they have. So you find that they go back and forth all over the place, and it really is tough to kind of monitor where exactly they move all the time. And so it's nice when they stick around for a couple of days, and we really actually have been spoiled over the past few months. We've had fairly consistent wild dog sightings, which is very good. Now you can see Chitwa Dam in the background there, and it's amazing because Dave and I were here this morning already. Just before we found Hosana, we were down in this section, and there were no wild dogs at that point. Yeah, so it just goes to show how you can miss things fairly easily. It's just about being in the right place at the right time to be able to find these kind of guys. And the reason why we actually didn't track them is because we did see their tracks, is that they went into Little Gowrie vessels area, and they were actually found on vessels, and then they came back towards Chitwa. So we wouldn't have had much luck had we tried to track them anyway, given that it was off our area. But like I said, I think pretty much everybody's going to try and sort of start catching a nap now. It's that time of the day where they are going to slow down. It's getting hot, as James is alluding to.
So, Mary Elizabeth, as I just said, yes, this is the same pack that was yesterday with Steve and James. It was in Djuma. They then went from Djuma, they went towards Buffelshoek, from Buffelshoek to Torchwood south towards Chitwa, from Chitwa into Little Gari into Vessels into Nets back into Chitwa, and that's where they are now. So they've done a fair amount of movement during the night, which is surprising, because I was saying to Dave there was a fairly dark night last night. The moon is starting to go back towards new moon, and generally when it's a dark evening the dogs don't move around nearly as much. If it's a full moon, then you'll find that they run a lot during the night because it's bright enough that they can see. But when it's new moon, they're very much stationary animals. They don't like to move around too much because of the threat of lions and hyenas, and the fact that they actually can't see them too well, and it stops them from sort of running around too much. But if you look at the one on the back right, it's quite entertaining because you can just see how full these dogs are. Its tummy is bulging as it lies on its side, so there you go. That's a very full wild dog, so I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of resting now. Right, well, James Hendry is continuing his theme of nests, and I'm told that he is now sitting with a very bright white fluffy foamy nest at the moment.
I am a foam nest, frog's nest. I'm just resting meditatively here next to them.